the meeting, right?
No, no, okay, it seemed like you guys saw it in your end, it was an official one. All right. We can check it out. Yeah, what's the conversation?
Just going back.
Yeah, okay, what? Superintendent of Mass.
So,
Okay, great job.
but
Meeting to order of the School Improvement and Performance Management Subcommittee, dated today, June 17, 2025, starting a little late at 7 p.m. Roll call.
Chairperson Bahu,
Here.
Ms. Doherty,
Here.
Ms. Delay.
Here.
3 present.
Okay, so we had a committee meeting not long ago with a number of students that came and visited us with many questions about school lunches. So Mr. Lay and I put in some motions to discuss 3 topics. So we're here to discuss those 3 topics. And who's here from Aramark meeting with us is the chairperson, which is the director, Rachel Tufford. Okay, thank you, Rachel, for coming here and sharing, what you can with us. The first topic we'd like to talk about is to have the proper department look at menu options in addition to the standard pizza offering. So the students were saying, on Fridays, we have been having pizza for all of my lives and our parents' lives. So we would like something more than that. And they're basically saying that they're international, they come from different countries, and it would be something that they would appreciate simply because they can feel identified, they can feel part of the overall food sampling service. So if you could maybe elaborate on that, that would be great, would appreciate that.
All right, so I actually got the opportunity to speak with the Daily students as well, and they had a lot of great feedback for me. I definitely hear their feedback about wanting more diverse and more culturally appropriate options that reflect our student body. I am hesitant to remove Pizza Day. I do have a chart for you here that shows our lunch participation throughout the month of April. So average participation on any given day is 10,250 lunches. But you can see on pizza days, which were April 4th, April 11th, and then I also have May 2nd here at the end. Our average was closer to 10,750 lunches. So I'm hesitant to remove it due to its ongoing popularity. The participation shows this, and we did an end of the year survey for a few middle school classes that I had some connections with, and in that survey, pizza was one of the top options. We asked, what were your favorite lunch options that you saw this year? Pizza was number 1, cheeseburgers number 2, and then number 3 was actually Asian-inspired meals. So we definitely see in that feedback that students do want more diverse options, and it's what they prefer. So like I said, I'm hesitant to remove Pizza Day because it's one of our more popular ones, but I definitely am on board with incorporating more culturally diverse menu options. In years past, we've worked with Jessica Landers, the high school teacher at Lowell High, who put together the Tasting History Cookbook with her students. And what this was essentially students' families' recipes all tied together in a book. And they have a blurb about why the recipe is important to them and the feelings, emotions, memories it brings up for them. It's a really great book if you haven't taken a peek at it. But in years past, we've worked with them on a quarterly basis to identify some recipes that we can work with and kind of K-12ify. Our chefs go into the class, identify the recipes, work with the students, talk about some of the regulations that we have to follow and some modifications that we have to make, and then they sample the recipe with students. And once we get their approval that it's good to go, it's authentic enough, we have run it in the Lowell High cafeteria. So these are just a few of the tasting history recipes that we've done, the pictures here. And if it's successful at the high school, we've run it across the district. And if it's successful across the district, it has made its way onto our menu. So our current menu offerings, the loklak, which is a Cambodian dish, and the arroz con pollo, those are 2 recipes that were hits across the district, and so they've made its way onto our cycle menu. So something that you see every month, you'll see next school year. And with the absence of Jessica Landers, we've kind of had to pivot our strategy this year because we don't have a classroom in that cookbook to work with. We have modified to work with our food service staff. They reflect our student body. They're a diverse bunch. We've had an ongoing partnership with Project Bread in their chef. So Project Bread has been going into our kitchens and working with our food service staff to develop their family recipes. And again, K-12 applied, so they take the recipe, they work with the food service staff to make sure we're in compliance as far as saturated fats, sodium levels. A lot of these recipes inherently are like really, really high in sodium, so we doctor them to make them more appropriate for school lunch. And then we have successfully implemented the cook at the Bartlett. Her name is Waleska Robles. She has a recipe called Wally's Boomin' Nachos that's on our menu. It's like a Latin-inspired Sloppy Joe nacho. We have Lori Donaway. She's a cook at the McAvenue School, her American Chop Suey. And then our other full-time worker at the McAvenue, her name is Isu Omo. In June, we were able to get her jollof rice. It's an African-inspired rice dish on the menu. So this is kind of the path that we've taken to go forward. It's been really successful, and having chefs being able to have their recipes, their family recipes on the menu, it's very fulfilling and satisfying, and they're delicious recipes. And then to see the translation of it being served in the cafeteria and students saying, my mom makes this at home, like I know this dish because it's not a typical school nutrition recipe and they're seeing it in their cafeteria, it's very, it's fulfilling. It's great. So that's kind of our plan going forward. Some other things that we've done this year to kind of get students involved and get some student generated ideas and family recipes. We worked with a student chef at the McAvenue. He was really, really passionate about having brisket for lunch. Brisket. He came from Texas. Him and his family moved here from Texas, and so he wanted to see brisket on the lunch menu. We said that is a little expensive, so we're not going to be able to put it on the lunch menu, but let's do a taste test. And so we were able to taste test a school nutrition approved brisket with the McAvenue students, and he was super excited. On the third page, you can see him with our chef manager, Shannon. He wore a tuxedo on the tasting day. And again, he was just really, really glad to see a recipe that is near and dear to his family's heart in his cafeteria. And we tried to piggyback off that and do a larger McAvenue student chef competition. We didn't get a ton of entries, so we pivoted and did like a special fun activity in the cafeteria one day where we gathered for each lunch what the students wanted to see on the menu. So we got some different ideas. The top one was actually chicken broccoli Alfredo or chicken broccoli ziti, so we ran that on the menu. And kind of just did like a we heard you, like you told us this is what you want to see, and here it is on the menu. So again, my last point on this is the student feedback is really, really important to us. So when we hear things like we want more diverse menu options, when we hear specific dish names, we definitely appreciate that. We've done weekly taste tests, or near weekly taste tests at schools throughout the school year. Our plan is to continue that next year, as well as engagement, just being in cafeterias when students are eating, asking them, what do you think about lunch? Do you like it? Is there anything you would change about it? And myself, my managers, and our food court interns, we compile that information. And I have an example below our student chef of what that feedback sometimes looks like. So you can see the greenhouse. We did a chicken dumpling taste test. 87% of kids loved them, 11% liked them, and only 2% would leave them. And we got some really good quotes. Loved them, obsessed, they are so good, I'm so sad I only have one left. So that was a taste test that it was a hit, and they loved it, and we still have the dumplings on our menu. The one below it, the Robinson, this was more of an engagement activity, so we're in the Robinson cafeteria because we were hearing that the tamales on our menu were not going over well. So we were asking students, what do you think about the tamales? What would you change about them? And so the feedback was not so good. So something that we pulled off the menu with plans to kind of R&D it over the summer, see if it's like a prep technique that needs to be improved. Is it a sauce that needs to go with it? But in the meantime, while we're hearing that it's not our most popular option, using that feedback to kind of drive what's on our menu month to month is very important to us.
Well, thank you. We can tell you're very passionate about what
Yes.
you do. We love it. I don't think the whole goal here was, the goal at all was to eliminate Pizza Day.
Okay.
It was more about maybe creating international foods.
Some other.
And it sounds like you're actually doing that, and you're running tests and making sure that students are interested in it. But it almost sounds like it's sort of happening at a school-by-school area. It's not really happening district-wide. Is there a way to implement something that may be a little bit more district-wide? And it doesn't sound like it's the tamales that are going to work, but it looks like these chicken dumplings were an absolute home run. And of course, this local lock, and I'll let my fellow school committee member, Mr. Blay, speak about that. That looks great. And of course, the Araz Con Polo, which is great towards, the Latin community. So great, thank you for all of that. So we're not trying to eliminate Pizza Day, but we're trying to maybe implement it more global or district-wide. Is there a way that we could sort of create that?
Yeah, and that's our plan if we're doing the engagement with our staff on a school-by-school basis. So our Project Bread chefs, the chef on my team is going in and working with chefs one-on-one to kind of pinpoint what recipes we're working with. And then kind of research and developing, taste testing it in the school that the food service staff is at. And then if it's successful, then implementing district-wide. So the Boomin' Nacho is on our district menu. The Jollof Rice is on our district menu, or was on our district menu in June, and we have plans to continue it. The Chop Suey, again, one that we tried at the McAvenue and then implemented district-wide. So while it's like on a school-by-school basis that we're finding these recipes and developing them, if there is good taste test results, if the students are telling us, we love this and we want to see this more, then something that we go ahead and implement across all schools.
Perfect, thank you. Now I'm going to open up to fellow school committee members of mine if they have any questions.
I'm good, let's go to 2.
I do want to say something. You want to go home? No. First of all, I think high school lunch selections. I think there are more varieties, more choices for the students than middle schools and elementary schools. Definitely, like what Mr. Chair just said, we don't want to eliminate pizza. I think pizza is a popular choice for many students. So I also talk to other students what they want, and I think maybe it's also easy, just as easy as pizza. Fried rice is not a popular. Every ethnic think that it's good, and also it's not Cambodian, it's not Chinese, but I don't know who made it, but lo mein is also popular for the students' choice. So I don't know we ever serve lok lak. It is a good dish. It's a lot of beef. If you could afford lok lak, I think you could also afford brisket. But that is something I think is fancy, whether you want it on the menu or not. But I never seen it served. Has it been served at the school? It has, huh?
Yeah, it's been on our menu almost every single month this school year.
Oh, okay.
And we have a fried rice dish, again, on our menu nearly every single month, along with a lo mein.
Okay, stroganoff, I think that's a good choice. Pasta, everybody loves pasta.
Yeah.
So I think if we could mix them up, all these menu choices for the students, I think it would be wonderful. And like Mr. Chair said, citywide, it would be wonderful.
Great, moving right along to item 2, motion by myself and Mr. Lay to have proper department report on packaging for our school lunches. So the school lunches come in plastic packaging. The students were basically saying it's extremely bad for the environment. I did have a conversation that Market Basket does use plastic packaging, and they really didn't want to hear that. So they're looking for something a little bit more environmentally friendly. Is there something that can be done about making our packaging a little bit more environmentally friendly, and still keep the food fresh? Because I'm sure you have to make the food and get it to where it needs to be, and the transporting of that cannot be done in certain ways without it having in plastic. So if you could just go ahead and touch on that, would appreciate that.
Sure, yeah. So we, as a department, have been making a few sustainable pushes, and this is definitely on our radar to try and move towards less plastic, more, whether it's compostable plastic or fiber, paper options. But like you said, there are several things that we're kind of looking out for. I do just want to highlight, we have a composting program that just started at 3 schools. That's specifically happening in the back of the house, so inside the kitchen, nothing out in the cafeteria just yet. But Lowell High, STEM Academy, and Greenhouse are all composting food scraps and any bulk food leftovers at the end of the day. It gets picked up on a weekly basis. So I think that I just want to highlight and kind of give kudos to those team. They've really taken this new initiative and implemented it no problem. Like I was saying, we are trying to move to more compostable containers. And while I think this is a great push, one thing I do want to maybe highlight or kind of flag is we can implement all of the compostable containers that we want and spend more money because these are inherently more expensive materials. But if we are just throwing them into the trash, it's really not doing much of any kind of benefit to our environment. So I do think that working with the city, I have a contact, his name is Chris, that I've been working with in the city to push forward these composting initiative. If it's something that's important to this committee and the school department, I think that it makes the most sense. Because like I was saying, it doesn't make sense to invest in these more green and sustainable package wares if there's not the proper channel to dispose of them that makes the most environmental sense. So we do have a few compostable cold plastic containers. We don't have any hot ones because they can't withstand heat, and the food is going into the clamshell and into a warmer until lunch service. So when we're exploring some different alternative options, we're thinking about multiple things. We're thinking about the presentation of the food. Right now it's in a see-through container. If we were to move to like a fiber paper container that didn't have a window in it, then we have to think about, do we then implement a display plate, or do we invest in labels on our containers? We also have to think about the quality of the food, like you were saying. I'm thinking of like wrapping something in paper and then putting it in a warmer. Is the bread gonna dry out? Is the meat gonna dry out? And then lastly, we have to think about cost too. So I did do some initial research. I reached out to a rep at Eco Products that has a lot of great options, as well as our food distributor, Cisco, our rep over there, to see what kind of options they have. And through the summer, we'll research and develop some of these and see what makes the most sense. I think we could make the move to doing more wrapped sandwiches. So when we're talking about a chicken patty, there's a more like solid kind of foil wrap that we could use, and we could stick a label on it. Or if we're thinking about something like a chicken tender that would be okay in a warmer, kind of in the open air versus in a clamshell, we could transition to like a paper, we call them boats, but like a paper food container that doesn't necessarily need to be covered. They also did provide me with some fiber containers that have plastic lids on top, but these, again, they're just a really expensive option compared to what we're doing now. And if we were to say we're going to do it across the district for every single hot meal, then I think we would run into some budget concerns.
Ultimately, it sounds like you're working on it.
Yeah.
It sounds like you've done a lot of homework, so, keep us in the know about it so that we can begin to know that, we are going to be more eco-friendly.
Sure.
Any questions as far as this topic goes? Yes, Mr. Lay.
Just a quick, by the way, I forgot to say thank you for taking your time to be here tonight at the meeting. And also I want to say thanks to Ms. Miranda and her class for all the, at the daily school for coming up with all these topics for us to discuss tonight. So you think that and the students think that they don't like plastic because of two reasons. One is for health reason, and the other one is for environment. Kids nowadays are very concerned about these two things. And is the deli paper more expensive than plastic? Is that what you came up with your study?
No, the deli paper would not be more expensive. Some of the things that I think about when thinking about wrapping sandwiches in deli paper is the quality of the food going to be maintained? So if it's going into a warmer, is the paper going to seal so that the heat that's in the warmer isn't going to dry the bread up or the meat up? And I'm also thinking about how we're going from a clear plastic container where students can see what's inside to a product where the meal is completely wrapped, and so they can't see what's being offered. So those are a couple things that I'm thinking of. With the deli paper, there are some more kind of premium options. I had mentioned the foil that has almost a cushion on the inside that seems to seal a little bit better than a traditional deli paper or a wax paper. So those are some of the things that we're looking to. But I really just want to maintain the quality of the food, but definitely if we're moving forward with moving away from plastic, I'm on board.
And the foil is probably you have to deal with aluminum as well when you do the foil. Anyway, all right, but thank you.
And my fellow school committee member here to the left of me, she really likes to shop at Whole Foods. So she was mentioning cardboard as maybe an option as well. So just something to think about.
Well, I'm sure you've looked into it. Can cardboard hold hot foods?
It can. When we think about some of our, I'm thinking of a pasta bolognese, something like that, the sauce might kind of seep into it. So depending on the cardboard, if it was a heavy duty kind of container, it could potentially hold it.
Or what if you had not like a wax paper, but that kind of,
Some kind of grease resistant.
yeah, inside. I mean, I don't know. I trust that you're doing your research on it. I think it's a very important move forward for us as a district. And also, if there are specifics that we need to ask from the city, like you mentioned, 3 schools that have compost, that takes up space, right? So not every, space is a high commodity for many of our schools. So to be looking at, because I do think it's a very important point. If we're going to go to sustainable, we should be composting where we can. And what are some options for doing that? I know we have a program that comes and picks up our compost. I have a bucket I put out with my trash and my recycling. I pay extra for that. But then every year I get bags of compost from it not compost, what do you call it?
Manure or fertilizer.
Yeah, I can't think of the word right now.
Another
Mr.
question,
Lay?
Mr. Chair. Thank you. Just a quick question on hot meal. Are we required to serve hot meals, or could we just make a lot of sandwiches and wrap them in deli paper? Would that be something that's replacing the plastic?
We aren't
readily?
required to serve hot meals. We're required to follow the meal pattern, but we do find that hot meals are preferred by students in comparison to like sandwiches, salads, things like that, especially at lunchtime.
Okay, thank you.
I do want to touch on one thing that wasn't on the agenda.
Sure.
And it's something that's been brought up
Let's
with,
go to this one.
okay, well, we can get there if it's not on the agenda. It's that my school committee person to the left, Ms. Doherty, likes to discuss. The Pillsbury breakfast bars that seem to be high in sugar, that seem to be a go-to. You know, we worry about the nourishment of the students. We worry about the sugar intake and about, you know, how they're taking in one of these bars, and they sort of, you know, they can be alert for a period of time, and then they sort of, you know, don't have energy, and who knows, a half hour afterward. So any thoughts or any discussion on that?
Yeah, so.
I'm sorry to blindside you with this.
Hey, we chatted about it a little bit last week. So in the past, so first I'll preface with, for breakfast, our requirements are, as far as grains and proteins go, we either have to provide 2 ounces of grain or an ounce of grain and an ounce of protein. So in the past, we fulfilled the 2-ounce grain requirement by doing an ounce cereal bar alongside a graham cracker. But we pivoted, I would say, maybe middle of last school year to do a 2-ounce breakfast bar. So it's a bigger breakfast bar and therefore inherently has more sugar in it because it's larger. These smaller breakfast bars, they had less added sugar, but we had to pair them with a graham cracker, which also had its share of added sugar in it as well. I will say that these options, of course, were within the meal pattern at the time, and you know, we continue to be within the meal pattern. I will say that added sugar restrictions are getting stricter as we move into next school year. Starting July 2025, there are added sugar restrictions for cereal and cereal bars, yogurt, and flavored milk. So our food producers are bending to those rules and therefore creating cereal and cereal bars with less added sugar. I think one option that may be a solution that is interesting to you all is going back to the smaller breakfast bars, these 1-ounce breakfast bars, and then we could pair with something like a cheese stick, a hard-boiled egg, so something that is higher in protein. I do also want to say that on our menu, typically these options are paired alongside a high-protein option. So if you do have a breakfast bar, it's served tandem with a breakfast sandwich or a yogurt parfait or a smoothie, so something that's higher in protein. Students have the option to choose what they want. And I think another thing that we need to keep in mind in this conversation is we want to provide variety to students so they have different options available day to day. So the fine line of where do we draw the line of having variety versus like having restrictions on if a bar has X amount of sugar, we're not going to serve it. So something that if you have feedback on, I'm interested to hear, but we definitely dance that fine line of there's not unlimited breakfast options. So if we are to be saying, if we're not going to serve a bar with X grams of added sugar, even if it is within the meal pattern, are we writing it off?
Ms. Doherty.
Thank you. I just, I'm thinking back to a conversation we had where you talked about you have to go with the options that are out there from the vendors that you purchase from. So changes in the federal restrictions, saying less sugar, more protein, whatever, is going to help with other options. And I mean, I just want to say for the record that the federal restrictions are a baseline. We can do better than what the federal restrictions say. And those breakfast bars are junk. They're just junk. And I really would be looking for, and maybe are we restricted? You have to go to specific vendors? Because I've seen breakfast bars that are nutritious, low sugar, high protein, still taste good. Maybe they're sweetened with maple syrup and they've got, you know, whole grain oats or whatever. I mean, are you limited to only purchase from the assigned vendors?
Yeah, so we are required to make sure that the breakfast bars are providing a certain amount of whole grain. So typically these products will come with what's called a CN label or a child nutrition label that says a bar that is, you know, 2.5 ounces is providing that 2 ounces of grain that we're looking for. So in the food industry, only a certain amount of distributors are going to want to cater to the K-12 environment. So we are more restricted than, say, a Market Basket or Hannaford's, the options that are in that wheelhouse, because they don't have to follow whole grain restriction.
But if you had something that met the whole grain requirement, but had more protein, less sugar, that would still be acceptable by the federal standards, right?
Yeah, again, as long as there's some kind of product formulation statement that says it's providing X grams of whole grain, therefore it meets that whole grain or grain requirement.
I guess I'd be interested in, as these new changes come about, maybe giving us, you know, like a follow-up to what we've discussed tonight in 3 months or whatever is the time frame that makes sense to you, to say, hey, we researched some packaging alternatives, this is what we came up with. You're continuing to do the diversity menu, which I think sounded awesome. And then here's some other breakfast alternatives that we think might be more acceptable. I mean, I don't know how my colleagues on the committee feel, but to kind of put it out there that we want to come back to some of these issues as you continue to do research, as the federal requirements change. So I would put that in the form of a motion that in whatever time you think makes sense. Do you want to say 3 months? We've got to get through the summer, right?
Yeah, I think maybe give us a couple of months into the school year to kind of try some things out and go
Great.
from there.
So
And then-
mid-October would work fine.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine. Say in October, we'll touch base again and hear, you know, what changes. And then in the meantime, I would say communicate through the superintendent's office. If there are things we should be doing about trying to identify how we can do more to compost our food waste from our schools. It's a huge benefit. It's not in the dumps. It's going back into the earth, you know, those things that can. Thank you.
And just to touch on one thing, I did love the idea of maybe the 1 ounce breakfast bar with the boiled egg or the cheese.
Yeah.
I think that would be a nice balance, and it would, you know, be realistically better than a bar that's loaded with sugar.
I just don't know how many kids would eat a hard-boiled egg.
See, I eat hard-boiled eggs.
Well, you're an adult. How many little kids would eat them, you think? What, Superintendent Skinner?
I think that Ms. Tedford will figure that out. You know, by sampling tests and piloting at schools and so forth. And I think that if very few students use it, that option, at least they can provide that option. Yeah. Right. I'd also like to chime in and say that I've heard numerous times that the concern about sugars. And it's a shame, I believe, that the federal standards allow for so much sugar. And I'd just like to say we have got to make every effort to beat that standard by far. Anything you can do to reduce sugar in the foods, particularly breakfast bars that Ms. Doherty referred to as junk, you know, they just really are filled with sugar. We've got to do better than the federal standard. Thank you.
Can I add one more thing that I think we should tie into this conversation? is educating students on the breakfast options that are available to them, because even if we are offering them a higher protein option, some are still going to go for the breakfast bar, or, the waffle with the syrup on the side. And I think it is important to educate them on, if you choose X, this is going to be your result, versus if you choose Y, this is going to be your result. I attended a conference a few weeks ago, and they had said nutrition education is in school. We see the greatest impact on students and what they retain when we tie it into breakfast and lunch, and what they're seeing in their cafeterias, what they're seeing on their breakfast cart. And I think this is a perfect point to tie in added sugars and protein and fiber, and what those things do to your body and how they affect your learning and things like that.
I think that's an excellent point, and I believe it is certainly within the realm of the money we get from the food service program to turn some of that into education. I'm not sure where it's fitting in. Are we currently doing it? In
Health, yes. In
class?
fact, we are already doing it to a large extent through health classes.
But elementary kids don't have health, right?
Right, yeah.
They have it through gym?
I think the idea is a great idea. I think we can pursue it. I think to some degree it's already happening. I think that you can educate students about, proteins and sugars and healthy eating. And if you put that, junk bar in front of them, some students are still going to go for it. So I think as adults, we have to reduce the unhealthy options as well.
The education piece is well made. I think we should look at, I'm assuming we're doing it in health classes, but we're still working on the health curriculum for the middle schools. But are we doing it in a very intentional way with the elementary students? Because that's where, and that connection, like you said, between what you're eating and building muscles, being fast, all those things. Yeah.
Sure, and it's never too late to learn about food.
Right.
But anyway, yes, that's a great idea. So, but we do have a motion about the, getting back to us.
You're off.
You have a motion from Ms. Doherty and Mr. Lay about you getting back to us about updates on the lunch. So let's go ahead and take a vote on that motion.
So I will second it. Mid-October, is that right?
Sure.
Yes.
Mid-October. So I'm going to second it, but I also have one more question before. When you talk about cost, I don't remember how much each student we have for breakfast or for lunch. Do you know how much it costs for each student?
It's free.
But
Free to the student.
I know, but for us to fund the to fund the school meal, how much? Do you know how much for lunch? How much for breakfast per student?
Are you talking about like our budget,
Yeah,
or are you
our
talking
budget.
about how
Yeah,
much we're reimbursed?
our budget.
So we spend about $1.42 per student on food per meal.
Oh, really? Breakfast or lunch?
Yep, so average across the board per day is $1.42 for breakfast, $1.42 for
Are you sure about that number? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Oh, we're going to take that vote?
Yes.
Roll call,
We
please.
just need everyone in favor.
Okay, everybody's in favor.
Say aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Great.
Aye.
Great, perfect. Last item, item 3. Invite food service director on discussion of lunch portion for middle school students, because students need growth in mentality, physically. So anyway, lunch portion, some students are bigger than others. And I see that you do have a report here. That if you don't mind just touching on for a moment, because it is getting late. And then we can sort of,
Yeah, so we're currently serving 2 ounces of grain and 2 ounces of protein, which fall on the high end of the federal meal pattern requirements for grain and protein. When we serve these portion sizes as part of the larger meal pattern, we fall within the ranges of certain restricted nutrients like calories, sodium, fat. And the calculations when we're doing, our meal planning are based on the idea that not all students are going to take every single component. So not all students are going to take the entree, 2 fruits, 2 vegetables, their milk. It's based on the fact that many are going to take their entree, the fruit, and a milk and be done with it. So when we do the math out to say, okay, if you take a entree, which has your protein and your grain, your 2 fruits, your 2 vegetables, your milk, you're exceeding those meal pattern restrictions. So while it's not the answer definitely an 8th grader wants to hear, I urge them to have the fruits, have the vegetables that are provided to them. One thing that I think we could improve on and do better at is like the variety and likability of some of the fruits and vegetables. And in the survey that I sent out to students, some of the feedback that we got was they prefer like a cut up fruit over a hand fruit or a craisin or a raisin. So implementing more of those things so they're more likely to take it. And something as simple as instead of giving them a whole orange, cut it into slices so it's easier to eat. And then on the flip side for veggies, they said in the survey that they preferred roasted veggies. So working with our staff, we have training at back to school time every year, working with our staff to train them on these different kind of cooking methods. It's something we've done in the past, but I think is valuable every year to kind of talk about the different cooking methods and how it affects the flavor of your food and things like that. So doing more roasted veggies with spice blends and things like that, because we are restricted as far as sodium goes, like using spices and different flavors that we can use in excess.
Terrific, thank you. Any questions?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, food portion. We have been, I think people, students have legitimate complaint that a 6-foot, 8th grader, 160 pounds, probably need more food than an elementary school and 1st grader. So definitely I'm in favor of finding a way to give extra food for the 8th grader, and rather than having it given to the 1st grade and they throw it away. So if we were to make steps so that in proportionally they eat more, we should give them more. Have you thought of like, how are we gonna do that?
So, like I was saying before, we run into the issue of, yes, we could bump out of the recommended range for something like grains or protein, but then we run into being over on restricted nutrients like calories, sodium, and fat. And another thing to keep in mind is, if we're doing it for just 8th graders across the board, there's always the argument of what about the big 6th grader or the big 7th grader? And also we would have to maintain separate production records. So every day cooks have to fill out production records, which detail out what they produce, what's left over, the amount of meals they serve. So extra paperwork on that end, as well as recipes that support these, the recipes with the extra ounce. So, and I have done out the financial implications of an extra ounce of protein. If we were to say we're going to do an extra ounce of protein for all 8th graders across the board, and it comes out it's anywhere from 23 cents to 76 cents per extra ounce of protein. So if you do the math to say, okay, multiply that by your 8th graders times the per day cost increase times the school year days, it's coming out to $85,000. But that's
Extra on top of what we.
Yep, and that's just for 1 extra ounce of protein. That's not taking into consideration the sauce or the spices that would be included in the recipe, that's not including, like, if we were to say, okay, we want 2 extra ounces of protein, and an extra protein and an extra ounce of grain. So I think we run into, while the math is telling us it would be about $85,000 on top of our budget for a year, I think a lot of extra costs would compound on top of that. And again, I just listed a few off the top of my head, but.
So if we taken some of it from the elementary school and first grade students and use that portion for the 8th grader, would that?
Yeah, so they have that range of protein requirements too, so we have to serve them 2 ounces most days to meet that requirement.
Okay. So in order for us to, are you saying in order for us to have that step increase, we have to put extra money and give that extra to the 8th grader?
Yep, so it would be a cost increase, the paperwork burden on the cooks of a separate set of production records, separate set of recipes. So it does entail financial as well as a few other.
Okay. Then another quick question is, do we know how much food waste for the elementary schools versus middle school, whether students who are in lower grades, they throw away more food?
So I don't have that information readily available. I will say in that conference that I attended where we talked about nutrition education, there was also the talk of food waste and how there is more waste tied with newer regulations. And one spin on it was, you know, we're working with the regulations that we're given and trying our best. And they had kind of said, while we're seeing more fruits and vegetables in the trash, maybe, those fruits and vegetables are being bitten into. So while we're seeing, instead of 10 apples, 10 half-eaten apples in the trash, we're now seeing 30 half-eaten apples in the trash, and that's 20 more students who are at least eating half an apple. Okay. And they had said, at home, kids are going to eat half an apple. So our expectation of what they're going to eat in the cafeteria should mimic what we're expecting of them at home too. So, I mean, I think about my 1-year-old, half her, 3/4 of her food maybe ends up on the floor, not in her mouth. So, like, that expectation should carry through when we're thinking about kids in the lunchroom.
Okay. So I just want to say that every year students have always want to find some way to improve their lunch. So I want to thank Aramark, thank you for taking the time to improve, and please continue to make improvements, because I know it's very difficult to satisfy everybody all the time, and as long as we keep on trying, hopefully eventually our food will get better. You've typed for us the guidelines. Could you actually make the copy of the real guideline so we can see and send it to us? Would that be okay? Would that be?
Absolutely, yeah, I can send you the meal pattern.
Okay, I'll give you my email later.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure, you can send that to the school email. Rachel, thank you so much for coming to this meeting. You've been very informative. We appreciate all the hard work you do. We can tell how passionate you are. I know you've only been in this job for less than a year, and we can tell the excitement that you have. So thank you for sharing this with us. We look forward to your report in October, as well as getting that email that you're going to send to the school committee. And thank you for being here. Motion to adjourn by Ms. Doherty, seconded.
I'm not seconding it.
Seconded by Mr. Bahu. All, yes, in favor, yes, great.
Thank you.